the end of the session. But let's move now into the beef of why we are here today. And I think with this brilliant panelists that you see, guys, we will be discussing managing the emotional challenge of immigration to Finland, and also establishing supportive structure locally. So that's pretty much the theme of today. And to achieve that, really what this comes from. I'm sorry for the panelists that you cannot see the slide on there. I wish at the beginning you guys would be here. Maybe I just wanted to mention a quick word about this. I was actually scanning through the report of the European Migration Network in 2022. I think that was for the year 2021. It's the latest. They don't have the 23 available yet. But I kind of noticed a trend. You don't need to focus on the picture itself. But what was curious to me, the speed that we had the pandemic in 2019, as you can see that migration is still kind of declining. So I think migration is still happening, and people are forced to move. Whatever might be the reason, it might be, I don't know, whatever you name it might be for studies, family related, or being whatever you call it, people are still migrating. It means that the world is becoming complex. And then how do we adapt in this society with this kind of change? And it's actually going rapidly. Maybe something that actually struck my mind when I was seeing this, it was related to the, sorry to mention that the victim, those who are victims of human trafficking. You can see that it has actually risen quite a lot. And this is actually statistical fact about migration in Finland. I just get it from the report. There you go. So yes. Now to discuss this topic, we have this amazing panelists here. I guess each of you has a mic. Feel free to use the mic, or feel free to talk loud if you want to. I guess it's good for the audience. So, first of all, for our panelists here, we have Verena Petrov, known as the chocolate angel. You guys will know why. I'm not going to be the one telling you about this. So, the only way I could describe Verena as the happiest German migrated, to the happiest country. That's the happiest country to make humanity smile, and this is all what she's about. I know that professionally she's kind of balancing her life, between businesses, IT, and but that ability to kind of brighten and put a smile on people's face. So thank you very much for being with us today. And I just have to mention that there's no specific order in this, but just the profile of my panelists. So here we have together with us today Andres Ashina, sorry for the pronunciation. And I think the first time I spoke with him, the story kind of struck me. So he's an entrepreneur, guitarist as you see, and he's currently the manager of the Nexus Incubator at the University of Helsinki. So please give a hand also for thank you very much for accepting this invitation. I really believe that your story will be really interesting for the audience. The last but not the least, because this is really important, as the ended the board member as well. So we have Sadi Ibrahim Somnes here. As a psychological counselor, at least what I know about him, he's really great working with kids, families, and so forth, you name it. And he migrated here as a child, as you can see when I stated there. That's the little I know about him for the past 5 years, but now finding his own path. And I can guarantee to you guys that his path is really interesting as much as I'm concerned. So thank you very much, Ibrahim, for accepting this. So how do you feel? I guess you feel great. We have a great panelists here, and I feel like we will start engaging with them quite soon. And maybe I would like to start with, what I'm going to do next. I really want the panelists first to share their story with us. I really want them to share their story with us, and then from there we're going to build from there. So maybe I will start with Verena, if you don't mind. Maybe we will hear from you, Verena. And please feel free to present yourself if you haven't done it the correct way.
You have done well, Paul, no worries. I hate English language with a passion. What the fuck? I live in the middle of Germany. Why do I even need it? That was me, age 20. I just failed in school. I was horrible in English at school. I had to repeat class twice. And even after repeating class 10 for the second time, I still couldn't, bother with having a passing grade in English. So my parents were like, you know what, school is over for you. You go out and find yourself a proper work. No higher education or university, nothing whatsoever. So you might say, how come she sits there in front of you, right, talking in fluent English, right, telling her story, how she migrated to Finland, right, and integrated here. Yeah, what happened in between? Let me first step into today. And the point is that I can say everything what happened in my life, whether it was small things, the good things, the bad things, the not so happy things, happened for one reason, and for the reason that I'm now here, and I do what I love to do, and I wouldn't want to have it any other way. But let's get back in time. After school, I was a complete lost. I had no idea what I will do in my life. I had no inspiration, no career. I had no idea what I would do. So I was pretty lost. And I mean, I was interested in maps. So, where the times when we still had proper printed maps, right? Not just mobile devices telling us the ways. So I ended up that through some coincidences that I ended up in an apprenticeship. And as much as I was lost, pretty much, not knowing what to do, right? I ended up that I worked. I started as an apprentice in a forwarding company. And amazingly, from one day being completely lost, the next day I was completely engaged. I was like, oh wow, there's work, right? I'm needed there. So I really knew suddenly what I want to do. So, and this kind of extreme from completely not knowing where to and what to being completely engaged. One of my best friends decades later said, Elena, you can't live you live in extremes. You don't know what is the middle ground, right? Everyone else knows their normal ways, right? I always go for the extremes. It's either the one extreme or the other extreme, and I have to say that's quite true and a good observation of myself. And one of those things which kind of really, drove my life, these kind of random moments which I wouldn't want to miss any one of them. For example, while I was an apprentice, usually an apprentice, right, that means you make coffee and you learn your job on the job, right? So, and I worked in a forwarding company which dealt with kind of food, right? And one of my colleagues, one day she worked and the next day she resigned, and I suddenly had, instead of just making coffee, right, I had to take responsibility over for a customer. And the customer happened to deal with or produce seasonal chocolate. So Easter eggs, right, and everything towards Christmas, right, all chocolate. So in a way, universe wanted to tell me already at that time, like, Elena, you should become a chocolate angel, but I have to say for decades ago, I just completely ignored the universe, right, and said, whatever, I don't care, so let me continue working. And I have to say, through all the different works I did, right, there are certain things which kind of drove me, because even though I might not went to a higher education, but I grew up in a family business. They say I was born and raised in a family business. So I pretty much was surrounded from CEOs, right, at lunch. My grandparents founded our company. It's now run in the third generation from my older brother. So pretty much I was surrounded by people who deeply cared about their employees. Right? They knew everyone in the company, right? They knew their families. So there was a deep care of the people all around them. And that is pretty much what I saw from the beginning, and which pretty much impacted my work ethics. And perhaps it also really much drove my way of just seeing work, right? For me, work was the thing that drove me. Just make sure I keep my story. So across whatever job I did throughout my life, there were certain red lines, and I mean, I've done all different kind of jobs, so because I never had these aspirations, so no career, no kind of straightforward line, right? It was going left and right all over the place, but there are certain elements which were red lines in my story. One, pretty much always having a bit of a CEO mindset, a lot of passion, my absolutely inability to focus on anything. So my brain goes all over the place, right? So kind of preparing and just focusing on you now, right, is something which kind of is a red line throughout my work. I usually would start 500 things and then be lucky if I just finish a few of them. While at the same time, I always loved to make people smile. Whether it was colleagues I worked with or my customers, internal, external people. So whatever I would do, I would want to make sure that person I work with would, have a positive experience from working with me. But that also meant that pretty much, or let's say years later, I studied for the very first time in my life the Science of Happiness, which is an online course where you can really learn about what it means, right, if you're happy yourself. And at that time, I really learned that I was always happy at work, but I was pretty much happy at work, but I could never stop working. So work became pretty much my main, if not my only topic in my life. So if people would meet me, right, I would keep talking about work, and if I wasn't talking about work, I didn't know what to talk about. So I can say throughout my life, I worked myself into 4 burnout situations. But at the same time, because right, remember I said everything what happened in my life happened for the reason that I'm now sitting here. Because I can say my very first situation of a burnout ended up that I worked for 15 years for Nokia, until the point when they laid me off. I did that in Germany. So at that time, it was right, I was a workaholic, so I couldn't see anything else than work. And even though they were pretty much saying, here, huge pile of money, right, just go away. Just don't bother coming back tomorrow. And if you say that to a workaholic, you know what happened? They say no. They say no, and a lot of people, especially people, because one of the things about me, I pretty much remember everyone and everything. So if I've met you before, or I met you and made you smile before, the moment you enter, I knew that. So people were like, are you crazy? You live in Germany, why you don't take that money, right? Why don't you stay there? But that was not a good thought for me. So when the offer came and someone said, you know what, just say no to the money and move to Finland. For me, because right, I already worked with Finns for 15 years before I even came here. So for me, making that decision to move to Finland, slowly things started to fall into place, right? So, because for me, I was all over the place. It might not, right, people usually meet me and say like, I'm super confident, I'm extrovert, but inside I'm super insecure. So it was kind of, when I came here, and at least, right, most of us, or perhaps all of us, have left their home society, right? And at least for me, there was always this kind of voice in the back of my mind, which told me how I should behave as a German in the German society. That's not necessarily something what people tell you, or depending on your culture, your family will say that very clearly, or you just know it because, you know, it's your society, you live there. And I know from studies, they even say that when you are leaving your home country, that you start to see things with more clarity. And for me, it took a few more years, but nowadays the voice is really, it's not there anymore. Because for me, as crazy as I am, and trust me, I am positively crazy, but I don't care. I don't harm anyone with the craziness I do. I usually rather kind of, you know, impact people in a positive way. But from seeing Finland from an outsider perspective, I always felt that here it is possible to kind of be different and do things differently. And that's, at least in my experience, what I've really seen here. So, I have just last week I met a manager in an interview because I'm looking for, or you know, I will start to work tomorrow again. And interestingly, something what I would say, he said as well, we both said for different reasons, I'm born in the wrong country. He said it because he hates snow. And he would rather perhaps live where you are coming from, Andres, or where you're coming from, or one of you. I say I was born in the wrong country. I'm legendary for I love it cold. Give me the option between plus 30 and minus 30, I know where I go. I go with the minus degrees. I love snow. I don't mind the darkness, and I can sleep when I forget the light. So I'm definitely born in the wrong country. In 2016, I stepped out of the corporate world. And yeah, again, I see a reaction. Again, people were, at that time, well, my family said, are you crazy? I mean, you have, right, you have an income, right? How dare you, you know, you give that all up. But I noticed that I became a far better chocolate angel than anything else I did. So you may ask, what in hell is a chocolate angel? What do you do? You met that box before, right? Yes. Do you really know what I do? The point is, when I stepped out, right? First thing, I did not study it, but then I started studying life and kind of looking around, because before I was such a workaholic, so the only thing I could see in my life was work, right? And so I looked around, and I mean, I don't know where you are coming from originally, but in Germany, I live so far away from Berlin, the capital of Germany, right? I could not just randomly go to an event where the president of the country is suddenly stopping by, right? So the amazing opportunity here to really live in the capital of a relatively small country, where on top people really don't know how to network, may I say? So where with networking, there's so much kind of potential here, right? So I really, and also I remember I met a lot of people, refugees which came here. I met people from all over the world who I got involved with Think Africa. So I started to realize how incredibly lucky I am. And I love to give back. And for example, Lucan for me played a role in the last few years. I don't know if any one of you know, they had a program called the Durham program, where they matched established kind of immigrants who are here already established in their jobs, right? And they matched them with new immigrants. And then I said, okay, give me the first match. And I think afterwards I was the one who met the most, because wherever I can either connect people or make them smile, that's what for me is really my purpose in life. And to still say, as a chocolate angel, what it works in 3 layers. The first layer, I just walk up to you with a big smile. I see you. You are worthy of my positive energy and commitment. And then the box goes open and people are like, oh, is that really for me? Really? How? And then people find their childhood memory in the box. Or they find something that really connects them to, you know, the wedding gift or anything, what triggers emotions. So even though I know this now already for 15 years, but I have no idea for the first 8 years what impact that leaves on other people. So this, for example, is a childhood memory for Finns, but only if it's the right isolator on the packaging. If it's the wrong one, they might say, ah, that's disgusting, I don't want that. So, what can I say? Do you remember the beginning of my story?
Yes, I do.
So, what do you think? What happened? For me, what happened was that my need and want to communicate with people from all over the world, right, drove me. And then I started realizing that English is so much more simpler, especially compared to Finnish or German, right? So it's all about a language where we all, regardless who we are, can meet on the lowest common shared understanding. Thanks so much for your attention.
Wow. Oh, Verena, that's exactly what I was expecting from you. And honestly, I do remember your story from the beginning. And I don't know if you guys did follow, but if I really wanted to summarize this in a few words, born in born and raised in a business family, always wanted to do the things how she felt, regardless of how other people think about it. A person who was taken away from what she holds as the most precious thing for her, as being as the workaholic. But then she suddenly changed, find a new path, how to replace that what she lost. And that was putting a smile on the face of people, and she find her way on that way. So that's exactly how I got the story. But thank you very much for the great story. Yes, now we're going to hear from Andres. Andres, please, thank you very much for accepting this request. Please.
Well, what can I say from it after this story? But
please feel free to use the mic, as Osita mentioned. I think it's also good for the audience. So can you guys hear me really good? Yeah.
Can you hear me well from the back?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't need this one. Or you need for the recording?
Yes.
Okay. So, picture this. A kid born in Venezuela, near to the forest, rainforest, Angel Falls. Maybe you have heard about Angel Falls, one of the biggest falls around in the world, tallest. So that's where I come from. Born from Colombian parents in a place called Puerto Venezuela. Living there 10 years, they moved to Colombia, where I lived 15 years. I used to play death metal, I had long hair, and I came to Finland when I was 26 years old. We came here with a tour to being able to have the tour with the band, and the tour was cancelled. So at that point, anyway, I had the contacts and everything, and I came here. I met my wife in here, so I decided to stay in Finland. But here comes the challenge. A musician, an entrepreneur, coming from an entrepreneurial family. How you remake your life here in Finland? So I, in the middle of this time, a year, I went to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I lived there. I experienced that culture myself. Came back to Finland to restart the life. Then what is easier for me to start? Business. That's where I get to know Osita as well. So we met there, studying at Metropolia, and we took different paths, all of us studying there. So I created a company here, and I did export-imports between Venezuela, Colombia, Finland, and also Peru. Some things about Peru. Then COVID came, then everything international trade stopped, and I was searching for another job. Then I landed to another university where I built an AI innovation hub, then moved to where I am now. So I'm managing a Nexus incubator program. I'm in charge of the whole program, and this is the second time that the program is running. I'm there to help companies to establish and to learn also from my experience. So I have done it in Finland. So from that, all this kind of multifaceted experience, you learn from the stage things that you will need in life, to present yourself, to introduce yourself, to network, and this is a key thing in Finland. As foreign person, you really need to get into the culture and get to know people, get to know others, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we are here by getting to know different stories, different paths, because every person has a different path. Sometimes path crosses, sometimes the paths differ, but that's the fun of life. Like, your story is not the same like everybody's story. Like, the key thing that I want to say to you is, you have a story to tell, and you also have a place here in the society. But that story will have an impact for another person later in life. That is your case with the chocolate. So I have encountered also my own story. For some people, replicates, rings the bell. For some others, not. But we have a place, we have a story to tell for people, and that creates an impact. Also, to being here as a foreign person, that helps others to establish here. Because when we started, for example, with Osita, years ago studying business, the Finland that we saw is not the same like this now. It's more open, there's a lot of other things, the cultures are here embraced, so it's a different story, but that's usually what happens with small countries, step by step. But that's, in a nutshell, this is Andres.
Thank you very much, Andres, for this great story. As we can see here, a skilled immigrant who moved to Finland and had to find a way to reset his life. I think that's a really, really interesting story. But my takeaway from what you just said, and I had to put it down. So you have a story to tell. You have a purpose in life. Just spend the rest of your natural life pursuing that. That's pretty much the way I got this message. So every single person in this room, we have our story, and we have a story to tell. Thank you very much, Andres. One more time, please. Let's give a hand to Yes, we move now to Ibrahim. Really, it's not working. You need a mic. We can provide the mic to you. Please, go ahead, Ibrahim. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not easy for me after these amazing people have spoken. So I was very interestingly listening, and I was getting so much value. Thank you guys. But also, I'm a bit dissatisfied because you make my job harder now. So, yeah. So also, thanks for the opportunity. It's been some time and I didn't speak to public. These are our people, our people I know. I know most of you from before. And also, there are more experienced people here, more older than me, and then I have the audacity to talk in front of all of you. So maybe I will share about my story a little bit. And since the topic is how to overcome or how to manage the or cope with emotional challenges, and then maybe I will bring some perspective from my occupation, which is being a psychological counselor for some years. But now I don't do it like a psychological counselor. I do mentoring. I teach people. Most of my mentoring comes from my own experience, basically. So yeah, I'll share a little bit about my story, and then I will maybe tell about how what kind of things I've been through mentally and emotionally, and what I felt after all this, how I felt, and then what to what point I came after all this. So maybe it will click, it will resonate with you. You will resonate with me. Yeah. So I didn't come here to Finland as a job or a student or anything like that. I came here as a refugee, for political reasons. Yeah, as you wrote there, I was an immigrant in my childhood for maybe 10 years or so, 9 or 10 years, from 6 years old on. And then I went back to home, which is Turkey. There I finished my studies, got a good degree. Everything was so fine, so good. You know, the work, and then you got the work, you got your own business, like in the side, and well, you have everything. You are going through these life steps, you know, like the general how to do. Like you go first job, and then this, and then that, and then marriage. Yeah, it was there too, and those kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, things happened in Turkey. Maybe you have heard about it. And then in the year of 2016, and all of a sudden, I was an enemy of the state. So, like a politically unwanted person. So, yeah. So you lose many things. I wouldn't say everything or anything. So you lose some things like your job and all those kind of things. You close your business. People are scared of you. You still have your family with you. You still have some of your friends with you. You still have your community with you, for which you are being accused also, like the small community of like an organization. So you still manage to build a new business. You're in the list, you're in the internet. Of course, nobody will hire you, but you start your own business small by small. Maybe some 9 months or so, I was coping with all this. I was managing to work in 7 different places, which one of them being my home. 7 different places, so it's like anything. But it was all around my own occupation. Then I did some time in prison for over a year. Then I went out of the prison, but this time there was a big risk. No, not big risk. There was a search warrant. So going back to prison again. So I didn't want to do that. So I fled from Turkey. I ran away, and then all those, the border crossings and river crossings and everything like that. So all those countries from Turkey to here, I tried to live in them too. And I ended up in Finland after all. So it didn't finish in there. So I thought it was I would be establishing like a new life. Of course, I'm establishing a new life, but this time it's a bit different because I came here and then I got into many relationships. I got to know people, and many of them seemed to me as very superficial, and I didn't want them to. And then I removed all these people. I backed off from all these people. I mean, you can imagine everything. And then I brought my family here. Then tried a little bit, and I got divorced. And then that triggered so many things, other things like my family, with my community, with being stayed here. So I've been in court, judge courts and everything so many times, police stations, so many times. So those kind of things, and then you feel like that everything is against you now, because you had at least your family, at least your community, and now they're against you. So these things happen. So it was quite a challenge, actually, I would say. And but what maybe I put your mood a little bit down. Well, we will hold it back. Don't worry. So the story ends. It didn't end, but it goes on positively. So at this point, I want to give an example, like a metaphor maybe. It's like, you know what? It felt like you navigate a ship in the ocean. You have a course, you have a way. It's a general way. Everybody goes that course, yeah. And it's a already known path. So you go, and then there is this storm, and then the storm is of course very hard. And if you don't adapt to that storm, and then you be very straight, and then you're doomed. It's not good. And I had to be very, change my course a few times in these situations. Actually, it's very recently, so it's like a few years now. So I'm going through all these mental, how would I say, mindset changes and everything around it. Mindset, you can say it mentally, you can say it emotionally or spiritually, everything. So I felt after all this, I felt so much grounded, so much confident, and so much positive. So I think everybody wants it as well. So I should share a bit what was my thoughts, what was my emotions, then how could I cope with this? How still I'm coping. I cope. I'm coping. It didn't finish yet. It's in the process of making still. One of the first things I could say is your purpose. When I say you, it's me, of course. So I'm no one to teach you or tell you anything. It's the purpose. Why am I even here? What am I doing in Finland? Can I go to another place, or can I go back to home? I cannot go back home. That's easy for me, because I cannot go back home. Nobody waits me there, like in a positive way. So that's the first thing. What's my purpose? Yeah, I have a kid here, and I have my purposes. So I'm staying here anyway. So challenges which come with Finland, being in Finland, is answered to some extent by this question. What am I even doing here? What's my purpose? So I know what I'm doing here, and I know that I'm gonna go back whenever I can, whenever I see this is better for me. So it helps. The other thing is I began to imagine everything, starting from myself. That means, who am I to become? Yeah, there are some people younger than me, there are some people older than me, but I don't think it's a matter of age. You can be 20, 10, or 60, or 70. Still, this is a question. It might be a question for you. So, what should be of me? Who should I become? So of course, there was Corona, and it's a challenge for everyone else too. Like everybody had challenges in Corona. Some sicknesses, I didn't count it at all. So it gave me time. Like Corona was closed. You are in your cave at home, and it gave me time to think, go through all this, and I still envision so many things about me and about life, about the system, about the country, about the nation, about everything. But if somebody doesn't want to envision everything, doesn't want to go through all this, how should be the society, or at least for yourself. For example, a little example maybe, I love, it's not about loving, but it's how things ought to be, how things should be. It's the standpoint of the right, what is right. For example, wearing wool is right from. I try to wear wool most of the times if I can, but in this weather it's not too easy, I know. So it's those kind of small maybe things, but it still it gives me clarity of mind, so much. And envisioning is one of my things. So one of the other things is getting a mentor. I met my mentor. All my life I wanted to have a really a wise person to answer some of my questions. Maybe you sometimes need that, but I needed it a lot. And then I found one. I'm very happy to know him. I got so many positives from him. So mentor is one of the things I would say that helped me tremendously, very much. One of the other things is to stay positive, to stay balanced at least. You need to remove the negativity from your life as much as you can. And one of the best ways is remove the negative and toxic people from your life. And I'm still doing it. I'm a little bit struggling about it because I'm struggling with saying no to people, like you mentioned, because from the childhood on, it's not good to say no. But it becomes that it's not bearable anymore, and then you have to cut those people from your karma, or how they say, I don't know, from your energy. So you just say goodbye to them for good. That's one of the things that helped me emotionally so much. What else? Of course, there are some small things like exercise. When I was totally lost, emotionally, I was thinking I should be starting from something, and then I figured out 4 things. When you don't know anything to do, like what to do. Exercising your fitness body, anything exercise related, your diet, what you eat, what you put in your body, your mental health. What else can I forgot the 4th one. So your economic situation, sorry for this. So when everything collapses, you have to at least do something, because doing something and being wrong about it and doing mistakes is better than doing nothing. Or do I have time?
Yes, please, go ahead. You have a couple of minutes.
Sign me somehow.
Yes, I will let you know. Please. You have a couple of minutes.
So these 4 things, I tried this economically. I built also some online businesses and stuff. So but I changed it. I altered it right nowadays. It works a little bit differently. Exercise is one thing. It boosts your. It gives you a good push to move, and diet and everything else too, mental. But when you start with mental or spiritual or the mindset things, it's unending and it's so vague. It's always good to improve yourself, self-improvement, reading, listening to podcasts, everything is so good. But you cannot rely on that to push you forward. You should be doing something, because you are consuming all those ideas, motivation, and everything. But you have to do something. You should be moving, exercise. I started. I didn't have money, but I was exercising in outside the areas, where you can do. But in the winter time, you cannot do. Then I went to Alanto, the ice dipping. Actually, I started this year, before the winter and the winter. It's very challenging, but it is amazing. So these small things makes you have this first step. So it's not the main thing. It's never. You cannot rely on those exercising, doing yoga, walking a dog, or ice dipping. You cannot rely on those, but they help a lot. They help very much. But you should do the inner work because, as I said in the example of the navigation with your ship, I understood that this is a sign for me. And if I don't get the sign, if I don't get how can I say it? The signs from the universe, you might say, it will be even harder for you. They will give you the harder and harder challenges, so that you actually change your course of life. There was something wrong with my life. There was something wrong with my course of life. I could imagine now, and yeah, I got rid of all these toxic people, and I'm not naming them, but one of them is the organization. The organization I was with, like religious organization, which I was condemned to, like in Turkey and everything. So I cut my old relationships here in Finland, for example. I see some of those people sometimes, but I'm very careful with them, and I acknowledge them as just a person. But if they are in that energy of being tied to that organization, it is a negative for me. I don't want them. It's the sign to stop
Yes, thank you very much, Brian. Maybe not the sign to stop you, but when we get to the emotional part of the story, I mean, many of us here can relate to that in a certain way. Because like Andres mentioned before, every single one has his own story to tell. And something I find really, striking from your story is that despite all these challenges and all these difficulties that you manage to go through, you are still finding a way to stay positive toward this life. And that's maybe what you are kind of sharing with our audience today. So I think that's maybe the key message that I'm getting from what you're saying. And I really appreciate you being here today to share this with us.